1 Kings, chapter 7. And Solomon built his own house in 13 years and brought it to perfection. He built also the house of the forest of Libanus. The length of it was 100 cubits, and the breadth 50 cubits, and the height 30 cubits, and 4 galleries between pillars of cedar, for he had cut cedar trees into pillars. And he covered the whole vault with boards of cedar, and it was held up with 45 pillars, and one row had 15 pillars, and one row had 15 pillars, set one against another, and looking one upon another, with equal space between the pillars, and over the pillars were square beams, in all things equal. And he made a porch of pillars of 50 cubits in length, and 30 cubits in breadth, and another porch before the greater porch, and pillars and chapiters upon the pillars. He made also the porch of the throne, wherein is the seat of judgment, and covered it with cedar wood from the floor to the top. And in the midst of the porch was a small house, where he sat in judgment of the like work. He made also a house for the daughter of Pharaoh, whom Solomon had taken to wife, of the same work as this porch. All of costly stones, which were sawed by a certain rule and measure, both within and without, from the foundation to the top of the walls, and without unto the great court. And the foundations were of costly stones, great stones of 10 cubits or 8 cubits. And above there were costly stones of equal measure hewed, and in like manner planks of cedar. And the great court was made round with 3 rows of hewed stones, and 1 row of planks of cedar, which also was observed in the inner court of the house of the Lord, and in the porch of the house. And King Solomon sent and brought Hiram from Tyre, the son of a widow woman of the tribe of Naphtali, whose father was a Tyrian, an artificer in brass, and full of wisdom and understanding and skill to work all work in brass. And when he was come to King Solomon, he wrought all his work. And he cast 2 pillars in brass. Each pillar was 18 cubits high, and a line of 12 cubits compassed both the pillars. He made also 2 chapiters of molten brass to be set upon the tops of the pillars. The height of one chapiter was 5 cubits, and the height of the other chapiter was 5 cubits. And a kind of network and chain work wreathed together with wonderful art. Both the chapiters of the pillars were cast. 7 rows of nets were on one chapiter, and 7 nets on the other chapiter. And he made the pillars, and 2 rows round about each network to cover the chapiters that were upon the top with pomegranates, and in like manner did he to the other chapiter. And the chapiters that were upon the top of the pillars were of lily work in the porch of 4 cubits. And again there were other chapiters on the top of the pillars above, according to the measure of the pillar over against the network. And of pomegranates there were 200 in rows round about the other chapiter. And he set up the 2 pillars in the porch of the temple. And when he had set up the pillar on the right hand, he called the name thereof Jachin. In like manner he set up the second pillar, and called the name thereof Boaz. And upon the tops of the pillars he made lily work, so the work of the pillars was finished. He made also a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round all about. The height of it was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits compassed it round about. And a graven work under the brim of it compassed it for 10 cubits going about the sea. There were 2 rows cast of chamfered sculptures. And it stood upon 12 oxen, of which 3 looked towards the north, and 3 towards the west, and 3 towards the south, and 3 towards the east. And the sea was above upon them, and their hinder parts were all hid within. And the laver was a handbreadth thick, and the brim thereof was like the brim of a cup, or the leaf of a crisped lily. It contained 2,000 baths. And he made 10 bases of brass. Every base was 4 cubits in length, and 4 cubits in breadth, and 3 cubits high. And the work itself of the bases was intergraven, and there were gravings between the joinings. And between the little crowns and the ledges were lions and oxen and cherubims. and in the joinings likewise above. And under the lions and oxen, as it were bands of brass hanging down. And every base had 4 wheels, and axletrees of brass, and at the 4 sides were undersetters, under the laver molten, looking one against another. The mouth also of the laver within was in the top of the chapiter, and that which appeared without was of 1 cubit all round, and together it was 1 cubit and a half, and in the corners of the pillars were divers engravings, and the spaces between the pillars were square, not round. And the 4 wheels, which were at the 4 corners of the base, were joined one to another under the base. The height of a wheel was 1 cubit and a half. And they were such wheels as are used to be made in a chariot, and their axletrees and spokes and strakes and naves were all cast. And the 4 undersetters that were at every corner of each base were of the base itself, cast and joined together. And on the top of the base there was a round compass of 1/2 a cubit, so wrought that the laver might be set thereon, having its gravings and diverse sculptures of itself. He engraved also in those plates, which were of brass, and in the corners, cherubims and lions and palm trees, in likeness of a man standing, so that they seemed not to be engraven, but added round about. After this manner he made 10 bases of 1 casting and measure, and the like graving. He made also 10 lavers of brass. 1 laver contained 4 baits, and was of 4 cubits, and upon every base, in all 10, he put as many lavers. And he set the 10 bases, 5 on the right side of the temple, and 5 on the left, and the sea he put on the right side of the temple, over against the east, southward. And Hiram made cauldrons, and shovels, and basins, and finished all the work of King Solomon in the temple of the Lord. The 2 pillars, and the 2 cords of the chapiters, upon the chapiters of the pillars, and the 2 networks to cover the 2 cords that were upon the top of the pillars. And 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, 2 rows of pomegranates for each network, to cover the cords of the chapiters, which were upon the tops of the pillars. And the 10 bases, and the 10 lavers on the bases, and 1 sea, and 12 oxen under the sea, and the cauldrons, and the shovels, and the basins. All the vessels that Hiram made for King Solomon for the house of the Lord were of fine brass. In the plains of the Jordan did the king cast them in a clay ground, between Sokoth and Sartham. And Solomon placed all the vessels, but for its exceeding great multitude the brass could not be weighed. And Solomon made all the vessels for the house of the Lord, the altar of gold, and the table of gold, upon which the loaves of proposition should be set. And the golden candlesticks, 5 on the right hand, and 5 on the left, over against the oracle, of pure gold, and the flowers like lilies, and the lamps over them of gold, and golden snuffers, and pots, and flesh hooks, and bowls, and mortars, and censers, of most pure gold, and the hinges for the doors of the inner house of the Holy of Holies, and for the doors of the house of the temple, were of gold. From PrayLamp, peace be with you.